then I'm going to talk you through a potential bond refinance for the city. When that's over and you have questions, stand up, state your name, where you live, and we'll address those questions, okay?
Good afternoon. Appreciate y'all coming out today. Here. Working. Test.
There you go.
Never used one of these before. So all new. Just want to thank y'all for coming out today. Give y'all a presentation on what we're looking at doing for the police department for us a law enforcement shooting range. The city is planning on constructing one. We'd like to do it out at the landfill. We own 40 acres out there that has been around for many years underneath the control of the city. It's not going to affect any of the functions of the landfill on a daily basis or anything. The range is something we've needed for several years to provide a secure, controllable atmosphere for our law enforcement to be able to train and to work on their proficiencies. Times, most of this is going to be done during the daylight hours. The police department themselves will probably use it maybe 8 times a year. Then I would foresee 4 to 6 times a year from other departments that are in the county. It would be law enforcement use only. Other departments come, they're going to bring their own range firearms instructors with them to control the situations out there and control their guys. If there is nighttime training, it'll be from dusk till 10 p.m., nothing after 10 p.m. Most of the time we'll probably be finished before 10 anyway. Individuals, city officers will be able to use a range only with the approval of the chief or supervisors to go out there and use it to train. It's not going to have any impact on the trap team. The way it's been designed and laid out, it will go to the north. The range is going to be funded by the police maintenance fund, which is 1/8 of a cent of the 1 cent sales tax. The fund was set up and designated to provide equipment training and building maintenance, but not limited to that. If you look at the screen, it'll be the extended view there. That's the proposed location of the range. As you can see, there's nothing north of there for a mile, no residents or anything. An SDZ will be completed by our city engineer to make sure ricochets and all that will be self-contained. That's one layout that we're looking at. It's just your basic 3-berm range, but the next slide is what we're kind of shooting for in the end. It's not going to be done in 1 year, but we can always upgrade it year to year as the funds are made available through that police maintenance. Y'all got any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Yes, sir.
How much of the 40 acres is that taking up? Danny Weatherell, how much of the 40 acres is that taking up? I think Danny Weatherell. We live in Sturt Place here in Clarksville. How much acreage of that 40 acres is that actually taking up?
Inside the 40 acres, you're probably looking at a 2 to 3 acre range that will be cleared out to construct the range. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I don't need that. Thank you. What is the cost going to be? I have no doubt that it's needed. You and I have had this discussion before. That the range is needed, but what is the actual cost to the city?
The actual cost of the city's on the range this first year, I'm gonna say quite a bit below $15,000. We've got the equipment, we've got the guys that can run the equipment and construct it, we've got the city engineer on staff that's he's designing everything. So dirt work is mainly what we're looking at. Is the dirt's there, we went out and looked at it. It's just basically pushing dirt to the places it needs to be.
What is the closest house?
North, the direction we'll be shooting is right at a mile. If you go to the east, there's a house which will be north of, but it's probably within 200 yards. But we're in a natural recess of the land. In time we build our berms, there'll be no impacts to that residence.
And a couple more questions to ask. One is, I've had some some feedback, obviously, on social media, as you know, about, is there any thought given to this? I understand the need for a law enforcement range. I totally get that. Most of the feedback that I got as a former court member that represents that district is the possibility of a public use facility. Is that?
No, sir, it will not be public use at all. The reason for that is the police maintenance fund, which you're aware of. It was set up to fund law enforcement training and facilities. If we open it up to the public, we cannot use this police maintenance fund.
Really? Didn't know that. That's interesting. Thank you for answering that. What about the, I have had some feedback also from Arkansas Nuclear One. Okay, has there been any discussion of Nuclear One, evidently from what they told me, and I told them I was sharing with you and the mayor also, about they have an indoor range now, I guess?
I don't know. They do or they
There's an
don't.
outdoor range that they said they would be willing to allow you or the mayor to talk to the superintendent down there about the use of that. Has that been considered at all?
No, sir. It's what we're running into now is we're using private ranges from currently out of town. So we're moving our assets completely out of the city limits by a long shot. So if we do need them back for an emergency response, now we're having to bring them back for that time.
Where are you shooting at now, Chief?
It's Hunt Town at a private range out there.
I didn't know that was out. That's all I got. Thank you. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you for your time.
While he's getting that ready, I just want to give you a little history and kind of where I stand and what I've learned as being a mayor. I think my job as chief executive is to lay out paths and roadway ahead for the city to grow. It's not my decision. My boss is the city council. Their boss are the folks here in Clarksville. That's going to be the ones who ultimately decide this decision, whether this is a good path forward or not. But I feel that it's my duty to lay out a roadway ahead that would answer the question, why Clarksville? So if you take it into terms of when Stephen Hauserman, our economic developer here, when he does RFIs, he gets an RFI, which is a request for information from the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. They want to know about Clarksville. They want to know about our workforce. They want to know about utility rates. They want to know about tax rates. They want to know about Clarksville. So if they want to bring their company, their $25 million initial investment, 200 jobs at $25 an hour, you have to answer the question, why Clarksville? So on the even, we're competing against the Jonesboroughs, the Fayetteville's, the other towns in Arkansas who are vying for that company to come there, right, and help their people. So given everything equal, our taxes are pretty much equal across the board in the state. We have a great college, we have a great school district, we have a great hospital. We've checked almost every block to be competitive with every city in the state. So the one lingering question that you have is, when those CEOs look at these towns, they look at what amenities and what the quality of life is, not only for them personally, but for their children and the opportunities for their children. This bond initiative is one path forward to creating opportunities and doorways for our kids and for us to be more competitive on a scale that we hadn't seen in Clarksville in 30 years. So with that, I'll kind of go through it. This is a Vision 2011, 2020, 12 bond. You guys probably all remember who all was here for that bond refinance when we built the Aquatic Center. Remember that? Well, that was set to be paid off in 2026. And we're still on track to do that. It was a 1 cent sales tax. 3/4 of that 1 cent sales tax is what is used to repay debt. 25% of that bond stays on in perpetuity. Okay, that was set aside by the folks, Clarksville. It's there forever. It's never going to go away. So we're talking about 3/4 of that 1 cent sales tax. The 25%. I get a lot of questions about this. So we're talking about police maintenance, fire maintenance, and aquatic center maintenance. It's 25% of that 1 cent sales tax, and that 25% is broken down like you see on the scale here. So 50% of that remaining quarter goes to aquatic facilities. Then 25% of the other remaining 50% goes equally to police and fire maintenance. Make sense? So really, you're just dividing half of 25% 3 ways. It's very confusing, and I understand that. I'll take this on. So we're on track right now. If we were to refinance this bond for an additional $15.6 million, when by the time you put in paying off the existing bonds, put your debt reserve in there, you're looking at financing $23.1 million with a stated maturity date of 2034. That's adding 8 more years. So you're not adding any new taxes, you're extending debt by 8 years. And if we're right, and we're bringing in 85 to 100,000 more people into Clarksville every year to enjoy these facilities, your revenues are going to go up, and your ability to repay that debt is going to come down. So the more money you bring in, the more, and that bond is designated, those tax dollars are designated to repay that bond. So you could potentially see that date back up anyways. It could be 2028 if we're successful. Looking at a timeline, somewhere beginning in April, running up through June of next year before we actually get any construction bids issued. So we're not talking now. Why it's important now is that your interest rates are less than 2%. If you wait for the economy to be good, those interest rates are going to go up. You can't afford to do this. So it's a one shot in time to actually look at this option without raising taxes, but extending debt at a very low interest rate, actually lower than we're paying now. Next. So the projects that have been proposed, and keep in mind this is open, the event center, the difference between an event center and this facility right here is you can't hold concerts per se here. I don't think we can get a boat show in here, gun show, it'd be hard, right? You can't do really full-on basketball, volleyball, those kind of events. So the difference between a multi-purpose and event center is daylight and dark. This building you're in right now, the air conditioning, that track that you see right here, it's going around this, that needs to be remodeled. Not just resurfaced, the foundation of that track has to be replaced. The last estimate we saw on that was from it was an architect firm out of Russellville, $565,000. And this building, and that's coming, one way or the other. That track's gonna have to need it. The roof is gonna have to need it. The HVAC unit's gonna need it. So we're on a collision crash with that bill anyways. A fourplex baseball complex. Soccer lights, remodeling the soccer field out there. At the airport, you have to put directional lights on so that you can continue to run the soccer field at the existing place and still land aircraft at night. You can't have the lights affecting the aircraft. And then the project that has been on my radar since the day I got elected, that inclusive playground in Klein Park, which would allow kids of all abilities to play at the same location and open up the doorway for Clarksville to be a home to a Special Olympics event or even a Miracle League. Again, we're not talking about adding new taxes, but it does move the maturity date from 2026 to 2034, adding 8 years. Timeline for construction is in the spring of 2022. And we built these estimations in with the cushion of basically the city could see $123,000 loss of revenue and still afford this bond easy. Still manage it just fine. And now, keep in mind, those estimations are pre-Loves. They're pre-anything that he's got in the oven right now. So there's some things that are about to take place. And then I've covered the sub 2% financing, which is it's a great time to do it if you're going to do it. So here's how it would work. The refinancing ballot would go down on your ballot line item. First question is, do you want to refinance the bond? It says yes or no. If the folks in Clarksville vote no, dies right there and we're done talking. We just retire the debt and we move on. We sunset it and we go on with our lives. But if they say yes, the next thing they're going to see on the ballot measure is each project line item. Not going to be tied together. Make sense? So you can vote on them individually. You have a choice whether you think that's a good project or not. So I pulled this out from Nate Downs. He's the facility manager for the Pioneer Cellular Event Center, Weatherford, Oklahoma. It's about 60 miles west of Oklahoma City. They're a town of 10,000 people. They went into a partnership with their local university. They went a different route, but it's basically the same principle about what they did as a result of that. You'll see that from 2014 to 16, and he's still on track. Now, last year was COVID year, so they were off a little bit. But $8.4 million over a 3-year span in economic impact to the city. Now, figure 9% of that, and that's what we would be generating just off the event center to repay that debt. Not to mention the opportunities for us and our kids, what's there to do in Clarksville. This is the event center that was built in Poto, Oklahoma. So I went to multiple places to figure out annual cost, what it cost them to run it, and we'll get to that slide here in just a minute. This is similar. That's a little bit smaller because it's not designed for basketball and volleyball and wrestling, gymnastics. It's more of a straight convention center. But you can see, we're talking about car shows, boat shows, motivational speakers, concerts, camping expos, fishing expos, basketball tourneys, volleyball tourneys, wrestling, circus, Harlem Globetrotters. Sky's the limit. And with A&P's help and a lady that's moving here from California, we can make that a reality. Again, the Marvin Benson here, roof repair, the walking track repair, AC replacement, potentially adding 2 more courts here off this northwest corner. So it's just 2 designs of potential baseball fields, baseball complex. This is what the new soccer complex would look like out at the airport. So you basically got 4 fields on the west end, that's U6 through U12. And you have 2 competition regulation size soccer fields so that you can hold state and collegiate events there. And then 1 more U12 field on the east end, or more parking. So. And then what I really want to see get done is this inclusive playground. We're talking about extending if you know where the playground is in Klein Park right now, take that footprint and just set it to the south of it, pour the same footing throughout, and you'd have this inclusive playground where kids of all the buildings can play together and not be separate on one facility, playing as a team. Between Russellville, Morrilton, Poto, Weatherford, Oklahoma, this is a pretty conservative estimate of what you can expect for cost, annual maintenance cost, to include utilities. What else was it? Utilities, annual maintenance cost, and 2 employees. Okay. I pulled this up just to give you some kind of an idea for the event center. If you have 1 weekend a month or 2,000 people a month coming into that, at $6 per entry, $144,000. Each one of them spends $7 at the concession. That's $312,000 a year. So it can be done. That's even pre-advertisement. That's not selling any advertisement inside the event center. So what is Vision 21? It's the folks of Clarksville. If the folks of Clarksville want to see this happen, they're going to have to reach out to their councilman or councilwoman, councilperson, and say, I'm interested in seeing this done. We need to move forward. We saw the timeline was in April. We got till now in April, really answer questions, solve it. But I'm telling you, I'm pretty excited about no new taxes. That's my mother and father-in-law here, so you're pretty excited about no new taxes, right? Those of us on fixed incomes, that's a major impact. So I'm really excited about that. The fact that it's scary because we're in a COVID climate, change of presidency. But I think the online shopping world has proven to be worth its weight in gold as far as city revenues are concerned. We're doing just fine. I think that trend's going to continue. So, I put some information up here for. I did get a chance. So this is a ward map. For those of you that are not familiar with it, and then there's your elected representatives. So you just need to reach out to them, ask them questions, do what you want. So what are your questions?
On the event center and the soccer fields and the baseball complex, all that stuff, being as we've got solar panels in town in all different areas, will those things be able to be, would they be able to use the power from the solar for those? Would that not help in the cost? Because a lot of the operating costs will be electricity, all those things.
So let me try to explain a little bit what I know. So we wear the tag as being 100% renewable city. Does that make sense? Y'all are aware of that? So this building isn't ran off solar. It's different. But it requires so many megawatts of power every year to run this that you guys have to pay for it. And then so does City Hall, so does the maintenance building. So what we've done is figure out what the total wattage was to run the city. Then the solar farms that we have, the additional one, produces that much power and offsets that cost. Does that make sense? It's not like we're putting solar panels on the facility and running it. They've just generated enough power off the solar farms to make up for what we're consuming.
But will it be utilized in the new?
Can't hear you.
Will it be utilized in the new constructions?
Solar?
Solar.
Well, anything we can do renewable, we're going to, yeah. The anticipated revenue cost, or the anticipated utility cost on the event center would be about $138 a year, $138,000. So it's one of your biggest costs. Yes, ma'am.
I'm his wife, Linda Weatherell, his mother-in-law, and I live in Stewart Place in Clarksville. I'm just excited. I've always been for the youth. From having my children as youth, when they grew up in Mulberry, we created facilities for them to play softball, baseball, and stuff. Very, very important for us to take care of our children and what they do. And when you live in a small town, there's not very much for children to do. You've got to create activities at home for them, and that's what will bring them back home. When they grow up, they'll bring their families back home and they'll live here in our community. So I'm totally for it.
But to that point, you know as well as I do, both of my daughters were raised in structured competitive sports. When they were doing that, they weren't out getting into other trouble. That's a proven fact. I can recite case after case, friends of theirs who didn't stay on that same path with them, that ain't where they should be today, had they stayed with her. So, and it's not just the sports, right? It's the fine arts, it's your concerts, it's your music, it's the things you could do in that event center that we don't currently have the option for. Sports is great, and it clearly helps make better citizens from structure and discipline, and keeps them out of trouble. But it's the secondary and tertiary. Not that the fine arts are secondary to that, but it's just as important. And this would give us a wonderful opportunity to enhance that across the board. It's an option. If we don't bring it to a ballot measure, we're going to pay the debt off in 2026. Actually, before then, and we'll just go on with our lives. We'll be just fine. But I just felt it incumbent on me to bring it to the council and say, look, here's a possible path forward. If you guys want to do it, the window's open for you. But it's closing fast. The better the economy gets, I saw the interest rates were creeping up this week. The longer that goes on, the better the economy gets, the less appealing this refinance option is. He quoted less than 2%. That's free money. I don't think the bond aides can even really handle the paperwork for the 2%, less than 2% of that bond. So I don't know how profitable it is for them, but I'm glad he quoted it. I'm glad we're in that window. I'm glad it's not going to be any new taxes. It is new debt, and if I'm right, if we're right, we'll still stay ahead of paying that debt off, because we'll bring, let's just say, 85,000 people a year, okay? 20,000 for the baseball, 20 for soccer, which London, we're going to hit that and then some. Event center, another 40,000. You're already at 80,000 people a year. So you get 85,000 people a year coming to your weekend. Each of those spends $100 on average. Right? That's how much, Eddie? On that one? 8.5 million, right? You take 9% of that, which we're actually 9.5%. 9% of that, that's about $756,000 more dollars in our revenue. So $756,000 goes to pay back that bond just from generating the traffic that we did. So that 2034 date, it's not going to stay 2034. It's going to keep backing up the more money we pay on.
Chief said earlier that you couldn't use O&M money for a public facility since it was designated for the police department, correct? Okay, that O&M money goes to aquatic center, fire department, and police department. If that's a true statement, and I don't know that it is or not, then how are we doing it at the aquatic center when it's open to the public every day, and that operation and maintenance money is going in the same place?
Just look at the verbiage of when y'all voted on that bond originally. It specifically says that the only reason, the only time.
Mayor, I can't hear you. I just can't hear you.
It says that the only time that you can use O&M, actually you can use the O&M money for operation. You can't put it to the bond.
Right. I don't know what the language says originally. I do know that Barbara has told us, Barbara Blacker, that it can't be used for them. What did she say exactly, Jeff?
What I was told, her city attorney was, Mayor, I can't hear you, was that the designated eighth of the percent that goes to the police department and fire department has to be used for training, equipment, or building maintenance, but not limited to that. So it has to go toward them. I mean, it's like if we build an indoor range, I mean, we're not building it for the public, we're building it for the city to train and get the efficiency out of their officers and other agencies. So that's where she says that we can't use it for public funds.
But I'll get you the exact verbiage on it. We can clarify that. But that's a good point. He's making a very good point. We have a public facility that's receiving O&M money that public is using and accessing. So she may not be right.
I'm not necessarily advocating for that. Y'all need a range. Plain and simple, you do. I'm just telling you what the folks that have asked me about that. Y'all have needed a range for a long time. Well, what about, Mayor, one thing I don't think that was addressed that you may or may not know. Where would the event center be built at?
Well, I'm going to leave this up to the council. When you get into those conversations, you're talking about real estate deals, and I'm not going to do that publicly.
So you just really don't have any idea?
Don't have any idea. We're going to take recommendations from the community and put proposals together, have Morgan draw it out, see what the parking lot looks like, see if it fits. Kind of like you saw that. Go back to the side. Go back a couple more. All right, go back. See the one on the right? See the one on the right right there? Can you tell where that's at? That's Haynes brand. All right, so I don't want that to be public. It is now. So there goes that idea out the window. It's up there. So, you know what I mean? So that price just went up the minute I said it.
What about your O&M? How do you O&M? You know, the O&M money that's there now is designated, as we said, fire, police, and aquatics. Are you counting on the income revenue to O&M these projects?
Yeah. The attorney, Gordon Wilbur. Anyways, there was some conversation last year when we brought this up originally about dedicating 10% or 5% of that O&M just for maintenance on the event center, because it had the highest expense, $138,000 just on utilities. So that would be structured in the ballot measure. So people would have to vote on it. If not, my idea, personally, and my recommendation is let it pay for itself. We'll generate enough on it.
So the O&M money that you just spoke about, the 10%, and I'm not trying to be...
It's just an idea that some attorney put up, said you couldn't do it if you wanted to, but it had to be voted on by the people.
So that's adding more, that's actually adding money
No,
to
it's taking the same 25% that you're using. So instead of
you reallocate.
reallocate.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
So you basically take 2.5% from each for aquatic, police, and fire and dedicate it toward maintenance, or sell this like you do with Russellville or these other places. Sell the advertisement; it'll pay for itself.
Thank you.
Now back on the other question, I just want to tell you, I would object to the public using the range right now simply because of Chris Kyle. You know who Chris Kyle is?
Yes.
American Sniper. I don't want that. And from an immunity, from a liability standpoint, my advice to the council is you don't want to go there. You can't control that. You don't want that liability. You don't want to mix. You can't control nothing about that. Look at Highway 21. You just can't control it. And even if you could control it, you don't want someone who's, you can't tell when someone's having a bad mental day. And they got guns and weapons, and look what happened to Chris Kyle. So that's my advice to you council members that are here. We don't want to get into the public use of a gun range at all, simply because of that. So you look like you have questions.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm Patrick Baker. I'm a former graduate at the University of the Ozark. And you said something about getting the other university being part of it. Have we considered that?
Well, we did. We reached out to them. They have the facilities they need. Now, I would tell you that some of the coaches there, when they hold their camps and clinics, would more than definitely use that facility. If it's wrestling, if it's gymnastics, if it's a collegiate championship, they've got other facilities between the high school, their facilities, and now you've got this big event center. We could restructure the floor, have the event center, have the event there, whether it's wrestling, gymnastics, cheerleading, any of those events. So yes.
And I say that because what this lady here said about our kids leaving here, and they're not staying here because there's nothing here for them for what they say. But I see a lot of the college kids that are on a regular basis, and they're really being part of this community. So that's why I asked that question.
Well, and I'll tell you this, the secondary, tertiary things I'm thinking about, like kids want to know they want to learn how to play an instrument, right? So if you highlight that as part of your community, you get more. Emmeline, my oldest daughter, she's in college now. She basically paid her way through school teaching pitching and hitting. And then all of a sudden out of the blue, she wants to go play basketball. So I lost her from that. But what I'm telling you is that it creates a sub-economy that we had not seen. So those kids who are trying to learn, Greg, Jace took pitching lessons, hitting lessons, and you got local kids that are in college, so Jace and Emma, that crew can come back and actually give lessons. And if you build that economy, you build those opportunities, it'll be there, it'll stay there. And then when he flies somebody in here to look at Balboa Building or some other place, we go look at the hospital, we look at the college, and we look at our school. Then the next thing they say when they go home is, if I move there and I have a teenage daughter or son, what are they going to be doing? That's the next big question we have to answer. What is the opportunities for those CEOs when they're around the table saying, why don't I go to Russellville? Why don't I go to Ozark? Why don't we go to Jonesboro? What makes us better? I think if you create the opportunities, that answers that question. That's what I honestly believe. And to be able to do it at the interest rate that they're offering now, it's certainly worth considering. And it's certainly something that the folks at Clarksville are going to have to get behind. They're going to have to build a grassroots organization and start pushing for it. You're going to have to start calling your council members and telling them, Eddie, we're going to wear you out. It's just something we all need to consider. Yes, ma'am.
It's exactly the reason Northwest Arkansas has grown exponentially over the years, is they are providing all these things we're talking about.
Yeah. They have a little advantage on us. They have the Walton family and J.B. Hunt and Tyson.
We'll have those here too.
Yeah. We're perfectly situated between, and for those that have baseball kids, we're central between Little Rock and Fayetteville. It would be an easy draw for hundreds of some baseball tournaments, whether it be summer tournaments or whether it be high school. We're ideal. We're an easy commute. We're right on the interstate. And again, think about 85,000 people coming through, spending $100. That's $8.5 million. What businesses is not going to take advantage of that? Unofficially, I think we're over the 10,000 mark. I was told that by a member of the Census Bureau. So we check that block. So the next question is, you want the quality of restaurants, the type of restaurants that you want in your town? You gotta have the numbers, you gotta have the traffic. Well, how do you get the traffic if you ain't got the facilities? If you ain't got the facilities, you ain't got the traffic. So it's a catch-22, and we've been in that circle for 15 years. We're an opportunity to bust out of that circle. And I know it's scary, because it makes me nervous, big numbers. But I think that's what's been holding this town back for so many years, fear. Afraid to move on, afraid to make that big leap. I'm not afraid of it. I'm really not. I think Clarksville's a great place to be. I think people want to be here. I think they want to bring their kids here. We just have to prove it. You know, we got a lot of bicycling initiatives going on, a lot of different things going on behind the scenes that are about to transpire. So downtown Clarksville this year is going to change in ways I can't even publicly tell you. You guys are going to be amazed by that. And what is generated on the backside of that, as far as interest in companies wanting to come here, wanting to see what's going on in Clarksville. Why is everybody talking about that place? All that's going to come out pretty soon. It's going to start coming out this year. We start on that levee next week. You saw Legion Street was closed. All of that's going to start piling up. We just have to be ready to receive it, whatever it is. Making the opportunities for our kids. Get out of the catch-22. That's my stand. And if it don't, we'll just retire the debt, go on. Still going to keep moving forward. I promise you that. We need jobs. We need good paying jobs. But in the meantime, we need to take care of it. It's a great opportunity. Anything else?
I'm Chris Case. Now, if we did refinance the loan, it would stay locked in at the interest rate for the duration of the refinancing period?
Yes.
It'd be just one finance rate for the whole period?
That's why it's important right now, because you got a little small window before that economy starts turning around, going up. Those interest rates are right there where we want them. If we get it locked in now, we've got it at less than 2%. It's basically free money. It's basically free money. It's a good opportunity, good time. I know it sounds bad because we're in COVID, people are hurting. None of that's lost on me. None of that. I'm just trying to fix it, do my part to fix it. Give you guys an option, give you a way out of it, a way forward. We haven't done it. We tried everything else. Sitting back and waiting and just holding your hand up, waiting for a company ain't gonna get it done. We have to put the pieces in place to make their CEOs want to be here. They need to be able to land their airplanes. Somewhere down the line, we're going to have to extend that airport. We have to do those things. Yeah? So, Ricky, you got questions? All right, guys, thank you. I appreciate it. Any member of the council share anything? All right, thanks, guys.